Welcome to the NBAV podcast.
Welcome back to NBAV, the NBA Avenue podcast. And on a day where we can recap 6 games of basketball from last night, which was March 11th, and now I'm coming to you on March 12th, and we can just gloss over the first game of Detroit versus Charlotte, where Detroit got the victory, and just move straight on to the rest of the games, which each of them had a little bit of intrigue to it. The Suns beat the Cavaliers 117-111, and this is the continuation of the never-ending audition between Garland and Mitchell, where you have the Garland version of the Cavaliers against the Mitchell version of the Cavaliers. And I know that you can't say it's necessarily apples to apples because there are always injuries, and Donovan Mitchell maybe played without some key guys, and Garland sometimes plays and he doesn't have all of his key guys there. But for the most part, you get to see what the Cavaliers look like with Mitchell and what the Cavaliers look like without Mitchell, but with Garland. And this continued to be sort of the way it's gone the entire season, that when Donovan Mitchell is playing and Darius Garland is not, that version is much, much better than the Garland version. And last night, Garland looked very good. He statistically had a pretty good game. He scored 30 points in only 36 minutes of basketball. So that's pretty great. And certainly the eye test when you watch him is really good. He's very, very talented. He has a quick twitch kind of movement to him. He can drive, get in the lane. He can shoot very well. So he really has all of the skills you need as a lead guard, a lead scoring guard in this league. But for whatever reason, it doesn't really add up to the same winning that it did when Donovan Mitchell was there. So you could have two extremely talented players, Mitchell and Garland, but Mitchell could just be more talented than Garland. That is okay. That is the way it's looked for this entire season so far. And we've seen already a decent sample size of Darius Garland playing without Donovan Mitchell. It must be at least 5-6 games at this point that we've seen it for, if not more. And the Cavaliers started off really well. They had a lead around 20 points with only a few minutes to go before the half, and the Suns rapidly closed, and that entire lead disappeared and went down to maybe only like a 6 or 7 point lead going into halftime. So the quickness in which that game evaporated, that lead evaporated for the Cleveland Cavaliers was striking. And for the Phoenix Suns, this was really the perfect game of how they like to play, meaning the best version of them. And what I mean is that the Phoenix Suns have a great starting five when all of their players are healthy. And that starting five consists of their big three, Booker, Beal, and obviously Durant. And then Yusuf Nurkic at center, and Grayson Allen, who's been a revelation for them this season, having his best season by far, one of the leaders in three-pointers in the entire NBA. And if you look, all of their points, right, so they scored 117 points in the ballgame. 111 of those 117 were scored by those 5 guys. The starting 5 literally scored 111 points, and that's the same amount that the entire Cavaliers team scored in the entire ballgame. But the Cavaliers had that split between everyone, right? So the Cavaliers scored 111. Their starting 5 scored maybe, obviously the vast majority of that, but then they also had 13 from Craig Porter Jr. off the bench, and then they had 3 and 3 from Maryland Mobley, 9 from Damian Jones. So they had a more even split, whereas the Phoenix Suns scored almost every single point from just the starting 5. They only got 4 points from Drew Eubanks coming off the bench, and 2 points, so that's 1 bucket from David Roddy coming off the bench. That was it. Royce O'Neal didn't score in 29 minutes. He didn't score a point. And Bol didn't score a point in his 10 minutes. And Eric Gordon didn't play for them. So this is a very kind of indicative game of where exactly the Phoenix Suns are, which is that their starting 5 is extremely talented, but they don't really have any depth outside the starting 5. And O'Neal was even an upgrade. But for Bol to play 10 minutes and not even score a point, that's kind of a little surprising. That's sort of what he does, is score. So if Bol's not going to score, then you just have to be a little bit doubtful of why he's out there. So in this case, the Phoenix Suns get the victory, but which we did predict. We said that the Suns were going to get this win because the Cavaliers are playing their worst basketball of the season right now, so they're getting them at the perfect time. But you have to also be a little worried if you're a Suns fan because, look, right now they got the win. That's the most important thing. But the fear is they got the win and all of their buckets in the entire game came from the starting five. And there may come a point in the playoffs where you're going to need a couple of other contributors to throw in a few buckets. And we're just not sure if that's going to happen for the Phoenix Suns. We also had a game of the Warriors going against the Spurs, and this was a rematch because the Spurs had just beaten the Warriors without Steph Curry, and Steph Curry wasn't available for this one either. But the Warriors were able to get this victory. They played a lot better. But what was really fascinating was if you were watching during the fourth quarter when there were several minutes left to go, the entire ball game just really tightened up for them. And it was really fascinating because I don't like to watch Wembanyama on a regular basis because of how bad the Spurs are. But now that the Spurs are playing a little bit better, it becomes palpable. Like, it becomes worthwhile if they're playing against another team that has playoff aspirations, that's in it and needs the victory, which the Warriors are desperate for wins right now because they would love to get out of the 10 and go to the 9 and then to the 8. But so in this game, you do have a reason to watch it outside of just wanting to watch the tallest guy in the league who is a rookie. There's actually stakes to this game. And I like watching meaningful basketball. So when it comes down to the end of the game and the Spurs are actually trying to win this one, like they just did in the previous one, suddenly the Warriors were petrified to shoot, and Trayce Jackson-Davis didn't want to shoot anywhere near the vicinity of Wembanyama. You could see how he would get the ball and then end up dribbling it out, passing it out. Now, there was one play where the exact opposite happens, and anyone who's listening to this is probably wondering, what are you talking about? Trayce Jackson-Davis postered. He threw down the poster on Wembanyama, or at least he threw it down on him. The word poster is used very, very lightly. It's more of a real. I don't know if maybe you'd call it a poster, a borderline poster dunk from Trayce Jackson-Davis. But what am I talking about? How can you say that Trayce Jackson-Davis was scared and backing the ball out? Well, the truth is, up until Trayce Jackson-Davis threw down that one dunk, which was very impressive, he passed up several other shots, got blocked. And it wasn't just him; it was everyone else. Chris Paul didn't want to shoot it in close. Klay Thompson didn't want to shoot it in close, and when they were shooting it, they were leaving it short. And there was a long stretch of scoreless action. And there was one point where Victor got the stop on one end, came back down. There was a lob, and Victor didn't have time to catch it. All he could do was really try to redirect it in, and he did, and got fouled. And then he went to the line for a three-point play. And you thought right then and there, hey, things are getting a little bit tight. The Warriors are not able to score. There's a couple of minutes to go. And the Spurs have Wembanyama, who is a mismatch every second he's on the floor. So maybe the Spurs can come back and make this interesting, down just single digits in the final few minutes. But that was not the case. Victor took a couple of shots that were a little tough. He tried to bank one in. He threw like a high-arcing bank shot from inside, sort of right wingish area, and he took a couple others that were more difficult shots than he really needed to, and the Warriors persevered and prevailed and got the victory. So again, the Warriors now, where we thought there's no chance they could catch the Lakers now they're only one game back of them, so I guess anything is possible, but they really need Steph Curry back ASAP if they plan on doing that. Now, the Mavericks got things back in order as well. They were able to dispose of the Chicago Bulls by 35 points. So the Mavericks now winning 3 straight ball games, and they've righted the ship again. They were about 50-50. They won the 7 in a row. Then they started waffling, and now it seems like they've righted the ship again, and they're back on course, winning their 3rd straight ball game. So that's really good to see from Dallas. And if you look at Dallas in this game, the guys who they got the production from in this case was obviously Luka, because he's at the helm of everything that they do. And then, so Luka with the triple-double, 27 points, 14 assists, 12 rebounds in only 34 minutes. That's really incredible. But what was really key is that they got 20 from Gafford and they got 22 from Lively. So you have 42 points right there from these two big guys. And then the scoring was pretty much spread out from there, where you have Kyrie chipping in with 14, Derek Jones with 8, PJ Washington with 7. And in this case, the guy who really didn't get any shine, but who played 18 minutes, was Tim Hardaway Jr., where he was only able to score 4 points. And Jaden Hardy chipped in with a nice 11, but Tim Hardaway Jr. only scored 4. And I think that Timmy, as they like to call him out in Dallas, is really the key to just how far this team can go. Because if they can unlock him, and I don't think they should be focusing on unlocking him per se, because really the way to unlock Tim Hardaway is to get him a lot of shots, and when he catches fire, he'll be unlocked. And that was what he was doing before Kyrie came back, and also in games where Kyrie was there and Luka was out. It was really the Tim Hardaway Jr. time to shine. So the problem is that if you try to get Tim Hardaway Jr. unlocked, you're really doing that at the expense of Kyrie, Luka, and potentially the rest of the team, and potentially you're giving up wins that you could have. So I wouldn't focus on it, but if Tim Hardaway Jr. is able to have a couple of big games in the playoffs, and that is what happens. Like you sometimes have the Lonnie Walker game last year when Lonnie Walker was on the Lakers. You had the Lonnie Walker game where he just caught fire and the Lakers were able to beat the Warriors. And had that game swung the other way, maybe the Warriors end up beating the Lakers in the series. And you have, a KCP game. And you can have a Michael Porter Jr. game on the Nuggets. And all of these guys, you don't need them necessarily to be amazing every game. But when you have that spark plug, that live wire of a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr., perhaps he'll come up big in a couple of these playoff games and swing the balance. Then you had an interesting game where you would think, if you looked at the box score and you saw that the Denver Nuggets beat the Toronto Raptors 125-119, you would likely assume that it was done by the Nuggets just playing a complete game from beginning to end, playing a little bit better than the Raptors, and beating them. But that's not what happened at all. The Raptors had a massive lead, even in the fourth quarter of this one, and the speed at which that lead disappeared was alarming. And it seemed like once the Nuggets just dialed in, boom, they came all the way back and they got the victory. And with a minute or two to go, it was kind of matter of fact. You knew that the Nuggets had this one. So really surprising. And then with the speed that they were able to close that, also surprising that they were down to begin with the way they were playing. But hey, all's well that ends well, and they were able to get the victory. And then you have the other team that's looking to face the 1A, 1B Nuggets and Celtics, the two teams who seem to be on a collision course for the title. And the Celtics dismantled the Trailblazers 121-99. So a 22-point victory there. And what I've been thinking about between the Nuggets and the Celtics is that the Celtics, I would say, are the more talented team. They're the better roster. Whereas the Nuggets are more of a team, and they're more of a smarter unit. So I would say Celtics have the potential where if they are able to get it all going at the right time and play their best, I think they will beat the Nuggets because they have more talent and they have all around a better team. Whereas the Nuggets are the smarter team, the team that knows how to play better together. And they're waiting there, and they are ready to pounce. And whenever the Celtics aren't playing at their absolute peak, and Tatum isn't playing great, or if Brown isn't playing great, or if the all-around other players, all the other guys, Porzingis, White, you name it, if they're not chipping in the way they should, the Nuggets will take the series. Because the Nuggets are going to play pretty consistently well the entire time. So the Celtics, I would say, are the team where it's all on them. If they play their absolute best in the playoffs and they make it to the finals and they play their absolute best against the Nuggets, I do think we will see the Celtics as the NBA champions. But if the Celtics aren't able to get it all going at the right time, I think the Nuggets will then win. So I think that really all of the pressure is on the Celtics to play their absolute best. And that's kind of the way I would phrase it. It's that who's the better team? The Celtics. But who is the clearer-headed team? Who is the team that moves the ball around with more purpose, with the more reliable guys at the helm, which is Jokic and Murray, who plays smarter game to game, probably the Nuggets. That's kind of the way I would look at it in that series right now, with the way it's suiting up. Shifting gears to tonight's NBA action, there are 7 games, but there's really only 4 that have any intrigue and interest in them as it can actually impact the playoffs and the seeding. So the first one is an easy one. It's the first game of the night. It's the Sixers going against the Knicks. Now, the Sixers and the Knicks just played each other, and it was a very bizarre 79-73 victory for the Sixers. Now, this matchup matters a lot because the Knicks and the Sixers are right now the 4th and the 6th seeds. So if the Sixers beat the Knicks again, they will be tied, and the Sixers would be literally tied with the Knicks for the 4 seed, and I guess they would probably also have a tiebreaker over them, considering that they had won the last one and this one. I assume that means they have the tiebreaker. So the Sixers can basically jump from 6-4 with a victory tonight, or the Knicks could beat them and then send the Sixers potentially to 7, depending on what the Pacers do. So that's the first one. And the Knicks getting healthier, I don't know if OG is going to be back tonight 100%, but the Knicks have got to find a way to win this ball game either way. Then again, Sixers will try to do their best, but we don't even know if Maxi's going to be playing. So it's going to be pretty tough for the Sixers to get the victory. So I do expect the Knicks to come back and get the victory tonight and show a little pride and heart, which they really have a lot of. Then, after the Knicks versus Sixers, you have a Pacers versus Thunder game. Now, this game isn't so impactful for the Thunder because they're going to be either the 1 or 2 seed regardless. But the Thunder do have a half a game lead on the Nuggets, so they do want to get this win and move to a full game up on them and really clamp down on the 1 seed. And, they're a young team. They have no reason not to try and win every single ball game. Whereas the Pacers are sitting in 7, and the Pacers with a loss tonight would be tied again with the Miami Heat. And with a win tonight, they could potentially move in front of the 76ers and move up to the 6th seed. So there's really the win-loss for the Pacers sitting at 7 right here is the ability to move either to 6 or to move to 8. Just based on this one game and, what happens in the rest of the league. But based on this one game, the Sixers can either move up a spot. The Pacers can either move up a spot or move down a spot. The Sixers as well, which we already discussed, have the same thing facing them tonight. So you have the first 2 games of the night definitely have a lot of stakes there. The Knicks and the Sixers, and the Pacers against the Thunder. Now, the Thunder have been super consistent all year, and they're at home in their building. The record for the Thunder at home on the season is 26-6. So they've only lost 6 home games the entire year. And then their away record is a lot worse than that. Now their away record is still pretty good. They're 19-13 on the road, but 26-6 at home. Currently riding a 3-game win streak. You're going to have to go with the Thunder to beat the Pacers tonight. So if everything shakes out the way that I believe it will, you'll have the Knicks by the end of the night still in 4. You'll have the Sixers still in 6, and you'll have the Pacers in a tie for 7 and 8 with the Miami Heat, if it goes down the way I think it will. And then you have 2 games that are snoozers, really 3 games that are snoozers. You have the Wizards and the Grizzlies going against each other. And just to show you how bad the Wizards have been, they are tied with the Detroit Pistons right now. And the Pistons were off to a historic losing streak in the season, setting the record for most consecutive losses. And the fact that the Wizards are tied with them shows just how bad the Wizards have been for the rest of the year. So you have the Wizards going against the Grizzlies. You have the Rockets going against the Spurs. The Rockets are now playing without Şengün, going against the Spurs. And the Rockets and Spurs are the 11 and 15 seeds. So the Spurs are the worst team in the West, record-wise. And the Rockets are the 11th seed in the West, now playing without their best player. So another snoozer of a game there. And then you have the Celtics going against the Jazz. The Celtics don't need to win the game, but they will. The Jazz, doesn't really matter what they do. So there's 3 games in a row right there, not really very impactful. And then you have the Timberwolves, who are trying to figure things out. They're going to play against the Clippers. Now, neither team really needs this ball game either. But they're right next to each other in the standings. The Timberwolves are at 3. The Clippers are at 4. So whichever team wins this game is going to greatly impact the standings, because if the Timberwolves get the win, they'll move to 3 games ahead of the Clippers. And it's going to be hard for the Clippers to close 3 games on them with only 17 games to go on the year. Conversely, if the Clippers manage to win this game and they go to only that, right now it's at a 2-game differential between the Wolves and the Clippers. So depending on what happens in this game, it's either going to go from 2 down to 1. I'm sorry, it's either going to go from 2 down to 1 or from 2 up to 3. So if it goes from 2 down to 1, then this is just an extremely live race, and you may even give the Clippers the inside track, considering that the Timberwolves would have, if the Timberwolves lose tonight, they'll have lost 3 in a row, and they're trying to figure things out without Cat. So if the Clippers win tonight, I would give them the inside track to dethroning the Timberwolves and getting the 3 seed, moving the Timberwolves down to 4 come playoff time. But if the Timberwolves are able to get the victory tonight, then I would say that they will have a 3-game lead with such a short time to go. It's unlikely that the Clippers will dethrone them over there. So there are big stakes happening in that one, not to mention bragging rights and trying to show the Timberwolves are going to try to definitely win the game to show that they can get things back on track. They've lost 2 in a row, and also to show that they can beat a team like the Clippers. So both teams should be bringing their A game. I would say the Clippers probably don't care that much if they're the 4 seed, whereas the Timberwolves probably care more about their seed, but we'll see what happens tonight. In Los Angeles, with the way the Timberwolves are playing right now, I think you'd have to give the edge to the Clippers there at home to get the victory. And then the Milwaukee Bucks are going to face off against the Sacramento Kings. Now, if you want to try to do something that's nearly impossible, it's try to predict what the Kings will do on a nightly basis. It's really, really difficult to predict. They win just over 50% of their ball games. They're a little closer to 60%. So 57%, they are in the 7 seed. They're basically tied with the Mavericks, but the Mavericks have 1 more win and 1 more loss. So the Mavericks have played 2 more games than the Kings. So the Kings will now get 1 game closer to the same, but they're going to either drop below the Mavericks tonight with a loss, or they're going to go firmly in front of the Mavericks tonight with a win. So the Kings, they're sitting right there. They're between the Suns and the Mavericks, where they've been for quite a while. And they have control of their destiny to try and get really close to the Suns. They can move to a half a game back of the Suns with a win, or they can firmly drop to the 8th seed with a loss tonight. So very, very big stakes for Sacramento. You'd think that they would have to come out firing on all cylinders, whereas the Bucks don't really need the victory. They are 7-3 in their last 10. They won their last 1. They're not catching the Celtics. They're 8.5 games back of the 1 seed. So the Bucks really don't need the victory. The Kings really do. But the Bucks are the more talented team on the season. They have a better winning percentage. They're 42-23, whereas the Kings are only 36-27. So a much better record for the Bucks. The Bucks are still trying to show that they've figured things out behind Doc Rivers. So considering how inconsistent the Sacramento Kings have been, even though they really need the game, I would say you still got to go with the Milwaukee Bucks to get this victory. As long as Giannis and Damian Lillard are on the court, I would pick the Bucks to win it. But there you have it for the night. It's going to be the Sixers-Knicks game, the Pacers-Thunder game, the Timberwolves against the Clippers, and then the Bucks versus Kings game. So you have 4 really good games to pay attention to. You can follow us on social at NBAVE, that's NBAV, short for NBA Avenue, and you can email the show with your questions and comments at NBAVenue, that's NBAVENUE at yahoo.com. We're your source for a great time every time, and until next time, we are out.